Now, roasting Michael Cohen as a mediocre lawyer headed for jail, the self-proclaimed fixer now sits in the red-hot core of two of Trump's biggest legal problems, paying off Stormy Daniels and taking money from a firm linked to a sanctioned Russian oligarch. And for all the strange events in the first year of the Mueller probe, the news that the feds raided the president's lawyer was a true bombshell.
Late word of an FBI raid on the Manhattan offices of President Trump's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen. Agents also hit Cohen's hotel room, seizing records after getting a referral from the special counsel's office.
But what records? Many legal experts were noting at the time that those kind of tough tactics were unlikely to be deployed if the only issue were Stormy Daniels. And that was correct. Cohen is now implicated in many other issues, operating a slush fund to sell corporations access to his boss, allegedly seeking payments from foreign governments, the kind of pay-for-play that can break the law without the right registration, and which Donald Trump campaigned against.
It's called pay for play. Pay for play corruption. Pay for pay. More pay for play. It's pay for play, which is illegal, 100% illegal.
I'm joined now by Randall Eliason, a former federal prosecutor. He writes in the Washington Post, Michael Cohen is in serious legal jeopardy. The Reverend Al Sharpton, my colleague, president of the National Action Network, host of Politics Nation, and a player in his own right in New York politics in the land of Donald Trump and Michael Cohen. And Shelby Holliday back with us, of course, from the Wall Street Journal. Rev, starting with you as someone who knows how these people work and has been around Trump and Cohen in New York, this wasn't just any aid to Donald Trump.
No, he was his guy that would really fix things. I remember when Trump started getting very political on the Bertha issue, it was Cohen that set up the meeting with Trump and I, where Trump wanted me to stop calling him a racist and saying that the Bertha movement was race-based. And Cohen sat in the meeting. I mean, so Cohen did all kind of duties on behalf of Donald Trump.
What did you glean about him and the trust that Trump puts in him from those dealings?
I think that as much as Donald Trump is capable of trusting someone, it would have been Cohen. Now, I don't think that he has a lot of trust in anybody.
Are you suggesting that Donald Trump has trust issues?
I suggest that very strongly. I think Donald Trump is for Donald Trump, which is why I think Cohen has some very serious thinking to do about what he is going to do now that he is facing serious time if any of the reports that we are reading about end up becoming true.
Shelby, you've been covering this story with us here on the beat since the inception. It wasn't clear exactly where the Stormy Daniels case would go.
Right.
But everyone can now remember those fateful words Donald Trump said on Air Force One. And knowing what we all now publicly know, it is remarkable in the form of a self-damaging dare. Take a look.
Did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? Then why did Michael Cohen make this if there was no truth or allegation?
You have to ask Michael Cohen. Michael's my attorney, and you'll have to ask Michael.
Do you know where he got the money to make that payment?
No, I don't know.
Ask Michael Cohen.
I think you bring up a really important point because Trump's public statements, we don't know what he's saying to Cohen privately, but his public statements have been very distanced from Michael Cohen. He's backing off of, his fix-it man, his right-hand man in a big way. He's saying these are Michael's business dealings. This was Michael's legal issue. You'll have to ask Michael Cohen. He also pointed out Michael Cohen is my attorney. He said that in April. So the fact that Michael Cohen was still considered the president's attorney, given all of the weird business dealings he was involved in, also raises some major ethical and legal questions for the president. But I do think one of the most fascinating things about this saga is to watch how the president has sort of publicly thrown Michael Cohen under the bus, and Michael in return and through various people in the media has warned the president, don't go there.
Well, under the bus and then really put it in reverse and backed up over.
Oh, yeah. Multiple times.
Over
that
his
phone call to
bleeding
Fox
body.
and Friends was astonishing to people close to Michael Cohen.
Wild. Randall, I want to play for you something else that's come up in the first year of the probe, which is what is known in legal circles as bonkers interviews. We've had a few of them, including one with the man who preceded Michael Cohen as Donald Trump's chief lawyer, who didn't have great things to say about Cohen. Do you think Michael Cohen's job at times was to keep the mob away from Donald Trump?
Well, if he says he was a fixer, then the question is, what did he fix? And what needed fixing? What needed fixing was relations with the mob and shakedowns by the mob so that there be no strikes and there be labor peace at all costs.
Randall, that's not a critic of Donald Trump. That's Donald Trump's longtime lawyer who said, I'm going to repeat, what Michael Cohen was doing was dealing with what needed fixing, and what needed fixing was, quote, relations with the mob.
You know, I think it's pretty clear that Michael Cohen was deeply involved in a lot of President Trump's activities, or even before he was president, of course, and we don't yet know what all is going to come out of this. The key thing, I think, to remember is that Robert Mueller is months ahead of the rest of us when it was revealed that, you know, his investigators spoke, I think, last November to some of these corporations that were paying Michael Cohen these large retainers that we just learned about a few weeks ago. So there's clearly a lot going on that Michael Cohen has a lot to be nervous about, and I think we just have to wait and see what Mueller's investigation, the other investigations, reveal about the depth and the nature of these ties. It's important to remember that there's a lot that goes on in this type of activity, such as the retainers from these corporations that might be sleazy and unethical in the Washington swamp, but not necessarily illegal. And so sorting all of that out is going to take some time.
Well, based on what we do know, what do you think was the most likely criminal evidence predicate for those dramatic searches then?
Again, it's hard to know, not being involved in the grand jury investigation, but it sounds like things related to possible money laundering, real estate deals in New York, maybe campaign finance violations related to the Stormy Daniels payoff, but I doubt that would alone be the basis of this aggressive step.
Reverend Sharpton, Michael Avenatti emerged as well as first Michael Cohen's adversary, and lawyers fight all the time, but then is something of more of a tormentor. And it's Cohen now who's under serious federal probe, not Avenatti. We spoke to him when this all started to come out, and he felt it was predicting like a Christmas gift when Donald Trump put Cohen on blast. Take a look.
We waited patiently, and lo and behold, Christmas has arrived. The president's comments on Air Force One are serious for him, serious for Michael Cohen. How can you have an agreement when one party claims that they don't know anything about the agreement? I mean, these guys are making it up as they go along.
Rev, you've seen a lot of different things in New York politics. Could you ever have imagined that Michael Avenatti, a civil plaintiff's attorney representing this adult film actress, would turn out to be such a key to Michael Cohen's undoing?
No, you would never predict it, but I think that what Avenatti has done, in probably more subtle ways the Mueller investigators have done, is identify Cohen as the one that if you penetrate him, at best, you may find out things if they don't already have them. And at worst, you put Trump in a very precarious position, because if Cohen says, yes, I did certain things with the knowledge of Donald Trump, the only one that can deny that is Donald Trump, which leads to Trump having to testify or say something under oath, or it is left unanswered. And that's a very dangerous position for the president.
Right. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that. Feds confirming Donald Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, is under criminal investigation. Trump personally called him today against standard legal advice. And right now, we're going to hear from a man who was inside the courtroom today, Cohen's adversary in the Stormy Daniels case, attorney Michael Avenatti. I'm going to ask him what went down, what he saw, and why he says he now has a clue about when Michael Cohen could plead the Fifth Amendment in this case. That big interview is the lead block of our show. I'm going to turn to it momentarily. But it comes amidst this rising heat on Trump. James Comey taking on the president and going there.
Honestly, never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but I don't know whether the current president of the United States was with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow in 2013. It's possible, but I don't know.
The former head of the FBI, a Republican, talking about his new book that everyone wants their hands on, and making a stunning assertion about an issue that's at the heart of this criminal probe into Trump's link to Putin. If there's any doubt as to what you just heard your former FBI director say, I'm just going to play it for you again.
honestly never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but I don't know whether the current president of the United States was with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow in 2013. It's possible, but I don't know.
It's possible. Those truly unusual comments come from James Comey as Trump's lawyer faces what could be an existential threat to his career and his freedom, with new details coming in, as I mentioned, this New York courtroom today, a legal fight that could go all the way to the Supreme Court. What's at stake may include secret tapes of Donald Trump or his associates. The feds now saying Cohen is formally, quote, under criminal investigation. They're also telling the court they have evidence supporting this emergency raid on Cohen, but some of the hottest details are redacted. The feds say they've spent months probing Cohen's personal business dealings, and that's not all. Because Cohen and Trump are challenging this seizure of the evidence, the feds came back blasting today at Cohen. They say they seized this evidence because of his misconduct, and they go further, saying, and this is important, they say today that Michael Cohen doesn't really practice law, and he basically only works for one person anyway. If that sounds familiar, it is a concept from The Godfather that a former U.S. senator raised right here on the beat this week.
Let me explain the Trump Organization. There's a wonderful scene in the Mario Puzo's The Godfather where Tom Hagen is asked about his representation of Michael Corleone. And he says, I have a very unusual law practice. I have a single client who insists on hearing bad news immediately.
I have a single client who insists on hearing bad news immediately. Think about that and this incredible report breaking tonight that Donald Trump was calling Michael Cohen today. This is all about whether Cohen equals Trump. Now, that was one expert's view. Tonight, I can tell you the feds agree. They say in these filings under oath here, he has exceedingly few clients beyond Trump, and that he does basically, quote, no legal work. He sent 0 emails to Trump. This looks bad for Cohen. It looks like the effort by Michael Cohen and Trump to protect this evidence that the feds already have is backfiring. You know, it's never a good sign when your bodyguard needs a bodyguard or when your lawyer needs a lawyer. Now, Donald Trump's lawyer needed a lawyer really badly today, and now the feds say Donald Trump's lawyer doesn't really practice law, which raises a question that is hanging over all of this and that we can report tonight terrifies Trump. If Michael Cohen isn't Donald Trump's lawyer, what is he? Well, in the last 5 minutes, the New York Times has a new report that begins. Trump's advisors have concluded a wide-ranging corruption investigation in New York into Michael Cohen poses a greater and more imminent threat to the president than even the special counsel's investigation. One man who was in the courtroom today and has this vested interest in the case is my guest, the lawyer for Stormy Daniels, Michael Avenatti. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Ari. Good to have you.
When you look at Michael Cohen under this type of strain, and what the Fed said today, that he's not really a lawyer, does that ring true to you? Haven't you guys been litigating against each other?
Well, absolutely. I mean, Ari, this is something that we've been saying for weeks now. I've been stating that our case and the likely fallout from it was going to be substantial and was going to be more of a threat ultimately to Michael Cohen and the president than the Mueller investigation. I've been saying this for weeks. A lot of people doubted us at first. I don't think there's a lot of people doubting us at this point.
Is that because of your client Stormy Daniels, or is it because of things you learned about Michael Cohen and what he does for Trump?
Well, I think it's both. I think we brought a lot of attention to bear on a number of these issues. I think the raids that occurred on Monday, the timing of those, the scope of them, et cetera, is a direct result. I know it's a direct result of a lot of the work that we've done over the last 5 weeks. But with each passing 24 hours, Ari, this matter becomes more and more serious for Michael Cohen and the president. This is not some small investigation that was thrown together. I mean, this has the attention of some very, very qualified lawyers in the Southern District of New York.
You're talking about the federal prosecutors that are bearing down on Michael Cohen today. You're talking about reading these case files today that really seem to backfire. I mean, they took a 2x4 to Michael Cohen's head, and they said, not only are you not a good lawyer, you're not really someone who practices law, and you do a bunch of other shady things hiding behind your JD. Have you seen a prosecutorial filing like this?
Not a lot, maybe on one other occasion in 18 years. But let me tell you why that is so critically important in this context. If they find that the communications between Michael Cohen and the president were not in furtherance of Michael Cohen practicing law, then there is a high likelihood then that those are not attorney-client privilege communications.
You just said something that terrifies the White House, that Donald Trump knows. I want to put up on the screen this Washington Post headline. Trump's allies worry federal investigators may have already seized these recordings made by Cohen. Quote, it was his standard practice to do it. He recorded business and political conversations. That could be third-party verification of things he discussed with people around Trump. It could include Donald Trump. You're saying that part of the reason why the feds went in today, and you were in that courtroom, and said Michael Cohen's not really a lawyer, is because they want to say those aren't really privileged lawyer tapes.
Well, if there are tapes or whatever the communications are. But, Ari, I want to set the stage for a moment for your viewers, because this is important. Imagine you are communicating with an individual that you believe is your lawyer and that you have privilege with. So you're freewheeling in your communications with him because you think they're protected under the attorney-client privilege. And you do this for a number of years as it relates to a number of, let's just describe them as hairy issues. One day, the FBI kicks in the door, actually doesn't kick in the door, they knock, they're courteous. They raid his office and his home. They obtain these communications.
Right.
And you find out that...
And that's what terrifies him. I want you to stay with me. Matt Apuzzo, who broke the story that I mentioned and broke within the last 10 minutes, is joining me by phone. Michael's going to stay. Matt Apuzzo from the New York Times. Michael was just walking through why Donald Trump's most candid conversations ever might not actually be privileged as he long thought they were. Is that part of what you found in your reporting of why this is scaring them tonight?
Yeah, but the bigger problem with the reason that this is so scary for people around the president, for the president himself, is they don't know what's been taken. Right, so the FBI came in and they took all of these records, and they don't know what the FBI has because the search warrants were super broad. They took stuff from a safety deposit box. They took stuff from his cell phones. They took information from his computers, and we don't know what's on it. And I don't just mean we, the reporters, don't know. Even the lawyers for Michael Cohen and Donald Trump, they don't know what's on.
You're sort of putting it a little reversed. Donald Trump does know the worst things that he's talked to Michael Cohen about since he joined the Trump Organization in 2006.
Yeah, but he doesn't know what evidence that has been seized that Michael Cohen has documented.
Yeah, of course. But the flip is, and I want to ask you about this, when you write that they now, around Trump, see this as a greater and more imminent threat to the president than the special counsel's investigation, is that based on a view or fear that there are things in the past that Michael Cohen was in on that could be more damaging than the Mueller probe?
I think the view is from both the uncertainty and also from the fact that this puts Michael Cohen in extreme legal jeopardy. And the concern, of course, is, they felt they had a real understanding of the Mueller investigation. They kind of knew where their vulnerabilities were. They knew where this was, generally headed. They don't know. This is a big unknown for them.
I'm going to bring Michael back into this because Matt is describing the uncertainty. In my experience with clients, although uncertainty is something we all deal with in life, the clients who get the most nervous are the ones who think they did something that they're worried about people finding out about. I put that frame to you for your remarks, and